The wrench slipped in my sweaty palm, scraping my knuckles hard against the rusted iron of the U-bend pipe. I winced, sucking in a sharp breath through my gritted teeth, but I didn't make a sound. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of hearing me in pain. I lay on my back under the kitchen sink, my spine pressed against the cold, hard linoleum of the cabinet floor, staring up at the corroded metal that barely held our plumbing together. The smell of mildew and old grease filled my nose, a stark contrast to the rest of the house which Vanessa kept impeccably, terrifyingly clean. It was 7:30 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November. The rain was hammering against the roof, a rhythmic drumming that usually calmed me, but tonight it just felt like a countdown. My name is James. I am 34 years old. I work as a high school history teacher at the local public school. I drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper and an air conditioner that only works in December. And to my wife, Vanessa, I am the absolute definition of disappointment. Are you still under there? Vanessa's voice cut through the sound of the rain like a serrated knife. I heard her heels clicking on the kitchen floor, click, 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 getting closer. It was the sound of a predator approaching wounded prey. She had just come home from her job at a high-end fashion boutique downtown. Even from under the sink, I could smell her. She smelled of expensive perfume samples, cold rain, and deep, simmering dissatisfaction. Almost done, Ness, I called out, my voice straining as I gave the wrench one final, desperate turn. I grabbed a rag and wiped the black grease onto my old jeans. Just tightening the seal. It was leaking again. But I fixed it. It saved us $200 on a plumber. $200, she scoffed. The sound was dry and devoid of humor. Wow, James. You're a regular tycoon. A master of industry. Maybe with that massive savings, we can finally afford to go to a restaurant that doesn't have a drive-through window? Or maybe buy wine that doesn't come in a box? I slid out from under the cabinet, my joints popping. I sat up on the floor, brushing dust and cobwebs out of my hair. I looked up at my wife. She was beautiful, objectively. Blonde hair styled perfectly, sharp features, wearing a tailored black suit that I knew cost more than my monthly paycheck. But her face was twisted into a permanent sneer, a look of disdain that had etched lines around her mouth over the last 3 years. I stood up and walked to the oven. I made lasagna, I said, gesturing to the glass dish. From scratch. I made the sauce yesterday. It's your favorite. I'm not hungry, she said, walking past the dinner I had spent 2 hours preparing. She went straight to the wine fridge, the only expensive appliance we owned, and poured herself a large glass of Pinot Noir. And I'm tired of lasagna, James. I'm tired of pasta. I'm tired of this house that smells like damp wood. I'm tired of that car in the driveway that sounds like a dying lawnmower every time you start it. God, I'm just tired. We have a roof over our heads, Vanessa, I said quietly, leaning against the counter. We have food. We have our health. I have a pension. A lot of people would kill for this life. A lot of losers would kill for this life, she corrected, taking a long sip of wine. Her eyes flashed. My sister just got back from Bali. Bali, James? Her husband is a VP at TechCorp. They flew business class. They stayed in a villa with a private pool. Do you know what she asked me today? She asked if we wanted to join them next year for a ski trip in Aspen. I looked down at my grease-stained hands. And what did you say? I had to lie. She shouted, slamming the glass down on the granite counter. I had to tell her we were too busy with work. Because I couldn't bear the humiliation of telling her that my husband makes $45,000 a year teaching teenagers about dead people. I couldn't tell her that we can't afford the plane ticket, let alone the hotel. I walked over to the sink and turned on the tap. I scrubbed my hands, watching the water turn gray. She didn't know. She had no idea. She didn't know that my last name, Halloway, wasn't just a common name like Smith or Jones. She didn't know that my grandfather was Cornelius Halloway, the founder of Halloway Steel, a man who built half the bridges on the East Coast. She didn't know that when I was 25, he sat me down and told me about the blind trust. A trust worth $120 million. But there was a catch. A massive, ironclad catch designed by a man who feared gold diggers more than death itself. I couldn't access a single penny until my 35th birthday. And more importantly, I had to prove I could live a humble, honest, hard-working life without it. If I told anyone at all, the trust would be voided and donated to charity. I turn 35 next week. 7 days. I dried my hands on a towel. I looked at her. I can't change who I am, Vanessa. I'm a teacher. I know, she whispered. And I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? I asked, though I felt the cold knot of dread tightening in my stomach. This, she gestured between us, waving her hand vaguely at the kitchen, at me, at our life. Us. The mediocrity. It's suffocating me, James. It feels like I'm drowning in your smallness. She reached into her oversized leather bag. She didn't look at me. She pulled out a thick manila envelope. She didn't slide it across the counter. She threw it. It landed in a puddle of wine that had sloshed from her glass. What is this? I asked, staring at the bold black letters on the front. Divorce papers, she said. Her voice was steady now. Cold. I filed them this morning. I looked at her. I looked for any sign of hesitation, any sign of the woman I had married 5 years ago. Vanessa, we can go to counseling. We can make a budget. We can. No, she cut me off. I don't want counseling. I don't want a budget. I want a life. And I found someone who can give it to me. The air left the room. Someone? His name is Richard, she said, and for the first time in months, her eyes lit up. He came into the boutique last month. He's a developer. He builds luxury condos downtown. He drives a Maserati, James. A real one. Not a Honda. You're leaving me for a car? I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. I'm leaving you because you have no ambition, she spat. Richard is a man. He takes control. He has a portfolio. He has a future. You're just nice. You're a nice, broke, worthless man. Worthless. The word hung in the air. It vibrated in the kitchen cabinets. It echoed in the silence. I looked at the sink I had just fixed. I looked at the lasagna cooling on the stove. I looked at the woman I had planned to share my fortune with in exactly 7 days. If she had waited 1 week. Just 1 week. We would have been on a private jet to Paris. We would have been buying the villa in Bali, not just visiting it. But she didn't wait. And she called me worthless. I want you out, she said. Tonight. This is my house too, Vanessa, I said. My name is on the mortgage. And who pays the mortgage? She countered. I do. My commissions cover the bills. Your salary barely covers the groceries. Get out, James. Go stay at your mother's. Or sleep in your car. I don't care. Richard is coming over in an hour to help me redecorate. Redecorate. That was code. Code for erasing me. Code for replacing me. I stood there for a long moment. I could have fought. I could have screamed. I could have told her about the trust right then and there. I could have watched her face melt with regret. I could have saved the marriage with a bank statement. But I didn't. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. True character is revealed when you have nothing. And true love is revealed when you have nothing to offer. Vanessa had failed the test. Okay, I said softly. Okay? She blinked, surprised by my surrender. She expected a fight. She expected begging. I'll go, I said. But remember this moment, Vanessa. Remember it clearly. You chose the Maserati over the marriage. You chose the shiny object. Easier choice I ever made, she smirked, turning back to her wine. I walked to the bedroom. I grabbed an old gym duffel bag. I packed 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, and my toiletries. I didn't take the photo album. I didn't take the wedding ring. I left it on the nightstand, a circle of gold that meant nothing. I walked to the front door. Vanessa was already on her phone, typing furiously, a smile on her face. "Leave the key," she said without looking up. I placed the key on the table. "Goodbye, Vanessa," I said. "Bye, James," she waved a dismissive hand. "Try not to break down on the highway." I cancelled the AAA membership this morning to save money. I walked out into the rain. I got into my Honda. It started with a sputter, a cough, and then a rumble. I drove down the street. I didn't go to my mother's. I drove downtown. To the skyline. To the district where the buildings touched the clouds. I pulled up to the valet stand of the Grand Hyatt. I walked to the front desk, dripping wet, holding a duffel bag, looking like a homeless man who had lost his way. The concierge, a man in a pristine uniform, looked at me with deep skepticism. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, his hand hovering over the security button. I reached into my wet wallet. I pulled out a credit card. It was metal. Heavy. Black. It had no numbers on the front, just a name and a chip. It was a card issued by the Private Wealth Division of Zurich International. The emergency card my grandfather left me. "I need the presidential suite," I said calmly. "For a month." The concierge looked at the card. He looked at the logo. His eyes widened. His posture straightened instantly. "Of course, Mr. Holloway," he said, his voice dropping to a respectful whisper. "Right away, sir. Shall I order you some dry clothes?" "Yes," I said. "And get me a bottle of whiskey. The expensive stuff. I have a divorce to celebrate." I went up to the penthouse suite. I stood by the window, looking down at the city lights, the rain blurring the world below. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was stripping the sheets off our bed, waiting for Richard. She thought she had thrown away a rock. She had no idea she had thrown away a diamond. And in 7 days, on my 35th birthday, I was going to make sure she understood exactly what worthless really meant. I woke up the next morning not to the sound of Vanessa banging cabinets in the kitchen, but to silence. Absolute, heavy, expensive silence. I opened my eyes. I wasn't staring at the water stain on our bedroom ceiling. I was staring at a hand-painted fresco of cherubs on the ceiling of the presidential suite. I sat up. I reached for my phone. There were 3 texts from her. 8 a.m. "I hope you found the place. Don't come back to the house without calling first. Richard doesn't like surprises." 8:15 a.m. "Also, I spoke to a lawyer. Since you moved out, I'm changing the locks today. Don't try to fight it. You can't afford a legal battle." 9:30 a.m. "Just sign the uncontested papers, James. Don't make this hard. You have nothing to split anyway." I put the phone down on the marble nightstand. "Nothing to split," I whispered to the empty room. I got out of bed. I ordered breakfast, eggs Benedict and Blue Mountain coffee. When the waiter brought it in on a silver cart, he addressed me as Mr. Holloway. I ate in silence. It was Wednesday. My birthday was on Monday. 5 days. I had 5 days to kill the history teacher and birth the heir. I picked up the room phone. I dialed a number I had memorized since I was 12 years old. "Holloway Family Office," a crisp female voice answered. "This is private line 4. "Hello, Margaret," I said. There was a pause. A sharp intake of breath. "Master James?" she whispered. "Is that you? We haven't heard from you in 7 years." "I know, Margaret. I'm sorry. Grandfather's rules." "Of course," she said. "Happy early birthday, sir. The transition date is approaching. Are you calling to coordinate the transfer?" "I am," I said. "But I have a complication. I need Arthur. I need the shark. Mr. Sterling is in court," she said. "But for you, I'll pull him out." 30 seconds later, a deep, gravelly voice came on the line. Arthur Sterling. The man who had defended my grandfather against hostile takeovers and government inquiries. "James," Arthur said. "You broke silence." "I had to, Arthur. I'm getting divorced." Arthur didn't gasp. He chuckled. "Ah, the wife. The one who didn't know. That's the one. She called me worthless, Arthur. She kicked me out for a guy with a leased Maserati. Perfect, Arthur said. Absolutely perfect. How is that perfect? Because, James, Arthur's voice dropped. Greed is predictable. If she thinks you have nothing, she will be aggressive about the little things. She will fight for the toaster. She will fight for the Honda. And in her haste to secure the crumbs, she will sign away her rights to the cake. I want to crush her, Arthur, I said. I don't want to just win. I want her to freeze. Meet me at the office in an hour, Arthur said. Wear a hoodie. Let's keep the broke teacher act going for a few more days. We have a trap to set. I drove my Honda Civic to the financial district. I parked 3 blocks away. I walked into the lobby of the black monolith building. The security guard tried to stop me, but one call to Arthur's office cleared the way. I rode the private elevator up. Arthur was standing by the window. He was 60 years old, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. You look terrible, Arthur noted. Sleeping on a couch will do that. We spent the next 4 hours plotting. Arthur laid out the timeline. Monday is your birthday, Arthur said. At 9 a.m., the Holloway Trust vests. $120 million transfers to your control. Vanessa filed yesterday. Usually, discovery takes months. But she is in a hurry. She wants to marry Richard. I looked up Richard Vance, Arthur said. Heavily leveraged. 3 lawsuits. Driving a Maserati on a lease that is 2 months behind. He's looking for a cash cow. He thinks Vanessa is the cow. I laughed bitterly. He picked the wrong cow. She spends everything she makes. So here is the plan, Arthur grinned. We scheduled the mediation for Monday. At 10 a.m. 1 hour after the trust vests. We present a document called a Waiver of Future Assets and Discovery. It basically says, I, Vanessa, am so sure my husband is broke that I waive my right to audit his finances any further, in exchange for him waiving his claim to my assets. She wants to keep her commissions, I realized. Precisely. We will go in there acting desperate. We will beg her to let you keep your pension. She will sign. And once she signs, we notify her of a change in circumstance. We reveal the trust. It's cruel, I said. It's justice, Arthur corrected. She called you worthless. Let's show her the market value of loyalty. The next 4 days were a blur. I stayed in the hotel. I didn't answer Vanessa's texts. On Sunday, the day before my birthday, I went to the house. I parked down the street. I saw Richard's Maserati in the driveway. I saw them through the window. They were drinking champagne. Vanessa was sitting on his lap. They were celebrating my erasure. My phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Pending inbound transfer. $120 million. Value date, Monday. I looked at the number. The zeros stretched across the screen. I looked back at the house. It looked small now. Tiny. A dollhouse for children playing pretend. I drove away. The history teacher died in that driveway. Monday. 9 a.m. I stood in front of the mirror in the hotel suite. I had shaved. I had cut my hair. I wasn't wearing my teacher clothes. I was wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit Arthur had sent over. A white shirt, crisp as paper. And on my wrist, I strapped on my grandfather's watch. A Patek Philippe Calatrava. My phone pinged. Transfer complete. Balance, $120,004,200. The $4,200 was my teacher savings. The rest was power. I walked out of the hotel. A black town car was waiting. We arrived at the legal center at 9:55 a.m. Vanessa was already there. She was standing outside with Richard. Richard was wearing a shiny gray suit that looked cheap in the sunlight. He was smoking a cigarette. When they saw the black town car pull up, they paused. I stepped out. Vanessa's jaw dropped slightly. James? She squinted. What? Whose car is that? Did you rent a limo to look tough? Richard laughed. Nice costume, buddy. Did you borrow it from the drama department? Hello, Vanessa, I said. Shall we go inside? I have a busy afternoon. Busy doing what? Grading papers? She scoffed. Something like that. We walked into the conference room. Her lawyer, Mr. Blart, was waiting. Sit down, Mr. Holloway, Mr. Blart said aggressively. Vanessa wants the house. She wants the car. And she wants you to pay her legal fees. Arthur walked in then. He didn't carry a stack of papers. He carried a single, thin leather folder. He sat down next to me. Who are you? Mr. Blart asked. I am Arthur Sterling, Arthur said softly. I represent Mr. Holloway. Mr. Blart went pale. Sterling? From the city firm? James, Vanessa whispered. How can you afford him? Pro bono, I lied. He likes charity cases. We agree to your terms, Arthur said. James will give you the house. He will give you the equity. On one condition. You sign this. The full and final waiver. It protects your commission checks from James forever. Sign it, Vanessa told her lawyer instantly. Before he changes his mind. But Mrs. Holloway, Mr. Blart hesitated. We should read the fine print. I don't care. Vanessa snapped. James is broke. I want him out of my life so I can marry a real man. Sign the paper, James. Admit you're worthless. I picked up the pen. I'll sign if you sign, Ness. She grabbed the pen. She signed her name with a flourish. Vanessa Vance. Done, she threw the pen down. I win. You lose. Now get out of here. Go back to your Honda. I looked at Arthur. Arthur looked at his watch. 10:05 a.m. Actually, Arthur said, his voice dropping an octave. There's one small administrative matter we need to disclose. Now that the waiver is signed. What matter? Mr. Blart asked. Mr. Holloway turned 35 today, Arthur said. At 9 a.m. this morning, a blind trust established by his grandfather vested in James's name. Vanessa froze. Holloway. Steal? Arthur opened his leather folder. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. He slid it across the table to Vanessa. The current balance of Mr. Holloway's personal account, Arthur read aloud, is $120,004,200. The room went silent. The kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off. Vanessa looked at the paper. She looked at the number. She looked at the date. She looked at her signature on the waiver. She looked up at me. Her face didn't just fall. It disintegrated. The blood drained from her skin so fast she looked like a corpse. Her eyes bulged. James? She squeaked. Happy birthday to me, I said. This is a joke, she whispered. Her voice trembled. You teach history, James? You don't have millions. He doesn't, Arthur said. But the Holloway Trust does. But... Vanessa looked at her lawyer. Do something. That's marital money. I want half. Mrs. Holloway, Mr. Blart said quietly. You just signed a waiver. You explicitly waived your right to any assets disclosed after the moment of signing. I didn't know. She shrieked. He tricked me. That's fraud. It's not fraud, Arthur corrected. It's timing. The trust vested after you signed. Vanessa stood up. She was hyperventilating. James, she pleaded. Baby. Look at me. It's Ness. We promised. I looked at her hand. You chose poor, Vanessa, I said. You chose it specifically. You kicked me out because I was worthless. I didn't mean it. She cried. I love you, James. Richard means nothing to me. A distraction with a Maserati, I noted. I'll leave him. She screamed. We can go to Paris. Just please. Don't leave me here. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I felt lighter than I had in years. I'm not doing anything to you, Vanessa, I said. You did this to yourself. You measured me by my wallet. And now that you know the measurement, you can't afford me. I walked to the door. James. She screamed, lunging for me. James, wait. I walked out of the building into the bright morning sun. Richard was still leaning against his Maserati. He looked up and smirked. "Did she strip you clean, buddy?" Richard called out. I stopped. I looked at his leased car. I smiled. "Actually, Richard," I said, "I should thank you for taking the problem." Just then, Vanessa ran out. Her mascara was running. She looked wild. "James!" she yelled, running toward my waiting town car. She ran past Richard. "Ness?" Richard asked. "Babe? What's wrong?" "Shut up, Richard!" she screamed. "Get away from me! You broke loser!" Richard recoiled. "Broke? He has $100 million. James, please." She threw herself at the window of my town car. I sat inside. The glass was tinted. I could see her, but she couldn't see me. She was banging on the glass. "Driver," I said. "Go." The car pulled away. I watched in the side mirror. I saw Vanessa collapse onto the sidewalk. I saw Richard standing there, confused, realizing that his trophy had just shattered. 6 months later. The sun over Uluwatu was a deep, burning orange as it dipped below the Indian Ocean. I sat on the terrace of my private villa in Bali. I wasn't wearing a suit. I was barefoot. My phone buzzed. An email from Arthur. "James, the house in the suburbs was foreclosed on last week. Vanessa couldn't keep up with the mortgage. Richard left her 2 days after the mediation. He filed for bankruptcy last month. Vanessa is living with her sister and working at the boutique again. Enjoy Bali. Arthur." I put the phone down. I took a sip of my drink. I thought about Vanessa. I thought about the way she looked at me when she thought I was nobody. I looked at the Patek Philippe on my wrist. It ticked softly. My grandfather was right. True character is revealed when you have nothing. But he forgot the second part. True freedom is revealed when you realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. A woman walked out onto the terrace. Her name was Maya. She was an architect I met in Tokyo. She didn't know about the trust. She just knew I liked history. "Hey," she smiled. "The sunset is beautiful." "It is," I said, taking her hand. "What were you thinking about?" she asked. "History," I said. "And how glad I am that it's over." I looked at the horizon. I was worth $120 million. But sitting there, in the quiet, I finally felt like I was worth something more. I was free.